Good day everyone, this is John here from 3DCoat Tutorials and welcome to my channel. For this tutorial I'll be using 3DCoat to create a missile and it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to basically use some forms that we're going to create in the actual voxel section as a surface and then bring it back into polymodeling to get a perfect form. And this actual form will be nice and very detailed with low polygons to use for like a game asset if you wanted to use it for a game, or just a low poly so we don't have a lot of slowdown on your modeling. So let's get started. So in here, I'm using 2025. I'm going to use the basic form, and you can select different things within the main screen here. And I'm going to go straight to voxel sculpting. And in here, I'm going to start from scratch. So I'm going to select this. Now, if you do not have this axis showing, you can go over here to the view and make sure that's selected. So under view, selection, right? So if that's not there, click on it so you can see what you're doing. This is going to give us a form. So I'm going to make sure I click on this. I'm going to put this on the front view. I want to make sure that I am looking straight at this thing. So I'm going to start creating some lines here. Now, what you normally see is when you first start off, you're going to have more of this type of thing, just like this. You're going to have this squiggly line for your brush, right? And it's there, and we don't want to use this because this just helps us create like a form with a brush. We're not doing that. We're going to use actual curved lines to do this. So when in base clay, we can select this and we can go all the way down to this one here, which is your curves editor, or you can go to curves, select this and say activate curve editor. Same thing. It brings it up. Again, if you don't want to go that route, base clay, we can go to here, select it over here. Now the basic three things that we're going to be using is these three and possibly like one of these over here to help us with a curve. So we're going to start with this. This helps us create our lines. We're going to base the first line here. This doesn't have to be perfect, but we want to get close to the center of this. So when we bring this form into Modeler, it's just going to look that much nicer. So I'm going to go ahead and create a line. Now, the farther down I go and the curvature I put on this at the end will be really, determined by that. So if I bring it up higher, it'll have a less of a curve. It'll be more rounded at the top, or if I go way down here, it'll be a lot less rounded. So kind of keep that in mind while you're creating this line. So I'm going to start off like right about here. And I'm going to use the shift key to kind of help control. And I'm going to bring this down, something like about right about here. I'm going to readjust all this in a minute, but just to kind of give us the forms. Now, in here, if you use your Alt key, you can actually, basically zoom in or zoom out, and you can also move it. So all my keys are down below. If I use my left mouse button, it'll be basically red. If it's right, it's going to be green. So let's go ahead and go with something like about here. Again, I just want to get a small little cut in here just to kind of show us that we got a separation there for our model. And I'm doing this for, just reference basically. So now if I want to go and scale down a little bit, use the Alt key, kind of scale it down, bring it out, and I'm going to go about here for this one. It's going to be a little shorter than the top piece. And again, in here, I'm going to bring it in and get a nice little cut in here like this. Like that. Just kind of lining this up with this as close. And this one is going to be a little bit longer. So more like this. And again, and again. And this time it's going to be a little bit longer on this section. And then down. This won't be as long. And again, I'm just trying to create a nice form here. Something like this. Again, we can use the left middle mouse to bring it up. Shift key to make it straight. And we're going to do something like this. And let's go with something like this. This. Shift. And then upward. And then in. I want this to have a little bit of, of that form. So escape. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to basically move this out a little bit. We got a really long form here. I'm going to make sure now I select the selection mode here. And you can select now all these here. Now, this is what I want to make sure that I do is I want this to kind of be into the center of this line right here. So if I hit the Shift key, well, we can just kind of form it the way we want. Just bring it right about, kind of center it right there. You can always adjust in a minute. And now that we've got this, I really want this point here to be rounded. So if you click it, it goes away, right? We don't want to do that. We want to select either this or we want to do this. So if we do this, it gives us a nice rounded form. Again, we're still in the front view, right? We can bring this up if we want more of a dome. Don't ever go too far up because you're going to have a pinch on the very top here. We want this to be, if we want it more rounded there, we just bring it up. But don't make sure that line is above the center point of that point right there, because otherwise it will create a pinch. Like there is too much. So if you want to also think about the left side as well, we do not want to go too far because it will cause a weird form. So again, try to get this as close as you can. We could always add more points to this if we want to, but I'm not going to do that. I just want to get a nice form here. Something like this. All right, cool. So if I want this missile to be a little thicker, we can go back in here again and select these again. Left click, get off of that. And we can select all these again and just move these out a little bit. I'm not going to hit the center here. I'm just going to bring this out. So it's a little bit thicker. And there we go. So again, it's just to help us create a nice form. All right, so we can go back now and select this one and kind of just move it down a little bit or in. If we want more of a beveled look like that, we can do that. We can do this. It just depends on what you want, right? So I'm going to go with more of a rounded tip because I just think it looked nice. Again, it all depends on what you want. And this is just our form to help us work in the modeler. Okay, so now we got this. Select this selection here, select this. And now we're going to right click and we're going to go ahead and go to the actual create surface of revolution. So you right click, make sure you have your curvature, and we're going to select this. So click, left click. And there we got our form. Again, just to help us with the background. Perfect. All right, so we got our curve, we got our form, and you see up here it has a hole because obviously we did not line it up properly. So we can undo this. So keep this in mind whenever you do this stuff. Always go to the top view and make sure that this whole thing is lined up with your axis here. So I'm going to select this again, and we're just going to bring this in, and this will help us really, make it a little bit nicer. So everything's selected. We can bring this down, and we can just go ahead and just make sure that we bring this right to the center of this. You see the little pinch right there. It's perfectly aligned almost. Again, we can bring it up a little bit more. See that red line? We want to kind of get it right in there so it kind of, you don't see it. The closer you are, the smoother it's going to look, and it'll just be that much better. Okay, so now that we've done that, zoom out. Again, selection, right click, go ahead and do your sweep surface of revolution, and there we go. No hole in the top now, and it looks really clean, and it's a little bit smaller, and it's where I wanted it to be. Now, if you want to do any adjustments on this, you can go back and just adjust your points, right? So let's just say I wanted this to be more or I wanted this to be less. We can do that. There's a lot of opportunity here to do a lot of things. You can make any of these lines more smooth. But anyway, this is just to help us create the main form. All right, so now that we've created this, let's go now to the section on top here and bring this down. We're going to go right to the modeling section. And again, I'm going to go to the front view, and now we have our form. Now, what's nice about working in this mode is that we won't really mess with this at all because it's its own entity. Even though I'm in Modeler, it's still got this selection. And again, we could have gone in here, probably used this as well in Modeler, but I prefer to do that in there just because. All right, so okay, so now that we're in Modeler, this is kind of, the form that we created. Again, this is just a good study to understand what we have. I don't have to use these forms, but just kind of gives us a good baseline to kind of work with. And again, I'm going to make this probably a little differently. So I kind of want this top piece to be a little bit longer. I just think it'll look nicer. And I kind of want this to be a little longer as well. So I'm going to kind of go back for a minute and redo this because, again, I just want to kind of actually undo. In here, right here. So I want this top piece to be bigger. So this is say you've done, you brought it in, you see what it looks like, and you just wanted to make it bigger. So we can go in here and just kind of select this, and I can bring this straight up, kind of like this, okay? And I'm also going to, actually, let me undo this. I want this to bring down this whole thing because this is perfectly aligned right now. I kind of want to just zoom in and just bring this straight down. So I'm going to kind of keep this straight like that. And again, the thing about everything we do, we got to kind of go back and look at it. So, all right, so this has now a longer section, and I kind of like this to be longer. This section is nice, and this section is longer. I would almost think that this would be a little bit longer too. So we can go in here and just kind of, I think I'll just take this one right here and just bring this down a little bit. So again, sometimes you just got to readjust, but try to keep it as straight as you can. I think that looks better, a little bit longer. And then we got that now a little bit longer. And these can be a little bit longer as well. So again, let's bring this down, try to keep it straight. I think this would be better this way as well. Keep it straight there. So now it's a lot longer, actual missile. And I think that will look nicer. So again, go to the front view and see what that looks like. Yeah, I think that looks good. So let's go with this. And again, go to selection. And we're going to right click here. And again, create surface of revolution. Just like that. Yeah, I think that looks better. It has a longer tip. And again, I'm going to make this a lot nicer on the top. I'm going to make it more rounded, kind of like more of a sphere on the top. But this will help us at least give us some, forms to work with. Okay, so we've got this now. We can go into curve tree and just hide this curve. And we can go back here and just keep this showing. We can hide this, doesn't matter, but this is still here. I can take this off if I want, so I can see through it. And that's just an easy way to kind of use this to kind of work with. I'm going to go in here now and finally go back to the modeling section and let's start working this. Okay, so we got this form. We can go in here and start working this by looking, we can go to the top just like we would, and we have everything kind of aligned here, right? So this is really good. So let's go ahead and now start building our low poly model. So 3D primitives, we're going to select this. We're going to actually go to the disk mode, and you'll see that this is quite a bit smaller. We can just increase the radius here to kind of form the same shape as what we have here. So I'm going to go right there. And I'm also going to take off uniform division. I don't normally use that because it causes a lot more detail that I don't need. So one thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to make sure this is set to 0 because this will give us no actual three-way polys on the top. And I'm also going to expand the sides here to make it look smooth. So I'm going to go with like just 30 sections. This way, it's going to have 30 sections this way. So now that I've turned this to the side, I'm going to go back to the front view. And again, I'm going to extend the height here. So the height is going to go up to here. basically to the top of this rocket or this missile. And I'm going to also bring this down. I want this to kind of go about right about there. And I'm going to bring it up to here, right to the edge of this. This way we have a nice form. Now, see all these actual lines? These are how many you're going to have. And again, depends on what you want. You could do 20 if you want. You could do 30. It just depends on what you want. So you can even do 12. Depends how many actual polygons you want for your model. I'm going to go with 30. Normally 32 is a pretty common size. And the reason I go 32 is because if you go to a front view, the center is exactly in the center, and it will be on the center on all corners. And it goes basically up like 16, 32, and then you can continue with your amount to make sure that that center one is in the center. And I do that just for reasons that make sense. So if I adjust this somewhere else and I want to do that, this line could be somewhere else. It just makes it hard if you're going to modify something later on. That's the reason why. Okay, so we got this 32, and I'm good with the front of this. Now, I'm just going to start off with this. And another thing I want to do here is I want to create a nice form on the bottom here too. But for now, I'm good with everything. So let's go ahead and hit apply. And now we've created our first model in the actual poly modeling section. And one thing we can do is we can start modifying this. So you'll see that we only have one face up here is exactly what we wanted. And we have one face on the bottom. It's just, like I said, much easier to work with. So what can we do with this? Well, we can go in and now select the line. So go ahead and select the select transform. It's on the top here, add geometry over here. And we're going to select the face. This is just a real easy way to select line. So select the face and then the line. And now you got your line selected, right? Go back to the front view and just see what we want to do here. So I want to kind of emulate this so we can use the mouse, right mouse to do that. So I use the Alt key to kind of zoom in with the right mouse. Okay, so let's go ahead now and go down, and we're going to select the bevel, which is all the way down here. It's underneath the selected section right there. So now that we've got this selected, it automatically did a small bevel, right? Which is not going to work for us because this object is pretty large. That's why. So if I go in here and select maybe 40 maybe and hit enter, you're going to get a much tighter spot, right? Still not big enough. Again, depends on your size of your model. You want to try to form, the shape here. So I'm going to go with 80, and that's even better. So if I go back to the front view, where do I want this really to curve? I want it to curve a little farther down. So I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit even bigger, maybe 120. See how that's kind of going way down now? And when I create this curve, it'll help, follow through. I want us to be nice and rounded about that tip right there. So I think I'm going with 120 on this. So 120. And then if I start bringing this up, it starts forming this, right? So we can go with probably like around 8 or so. I'm thinking maybe 10. Let's go with 10. Tab and see what that looks like. Hit enter. And this will just give you a little bit more, detail up here. And yeah, that looks a lot better. It's nice and smooth. And you see you don't have a lot of polys here, right? So that helps control the amount of polys that we're creating. Okay, so we got the top. I really like the rounded form up here. Now, if you kind of rotate it around, see what you got, it does have a nice smooth dome. And that's kind of what I was looking for. So again, depending on what kind of form you want, you can change that by the way you form this line. So if you want it more like an angled, you would bring this line basically down to here to keep that same form that you originally created, right? So keep that in mind when you're doing this stuff. It's just placing that first line where you want it to curve with your bevel. Okay, cool. So I've got all this. I'm good with that. So I'm going to hit OK. So we got the top the way I want it. I'm going to now bring this down a little bit and work this one. So again, if you select this line here and right click, normally you can go to edge loop, but it doesn't work on the bottom. It just doesn't. So the best thing to do is go in, and we can actually go over here and say auto. We're going to select again the pop face actually, and go here and just select this. Once you select it, then you go line, and then it's a really easy way to select that edge line. So again, we're going to go to the front here, and I'm good with this form. I'm just going to create a nice bevel again. So go to bevel, and this time it went to 1 again. We're going to go like maybe 10 and see what that looks like. Hit enter. That's better. I'm also going to reduce this down to like 3. Enter. I don't need that many faces on the bottom, and I think that looks really nice. And I'm going to hit OK. Yeah, because you've got the edge curve here. I'm going to actually reduce this down to about 5 because I want this to be a lot tighter. So kind of keep that in mind. When you're beveling, if you want this to be really tight, you bring this down. Depending on how big your missile is, you want to make sure it kind of, see how that tighten this up? That's kind of what I want. So that 3 works now. If it was a lot wider and I had 3, it would be more noticeable. So hit OK. I'm good with that. So what I can do now is I can select the lines. We can go in here and just, first of all, we can go in here and select the faces. And we can hit the shift key here. Let's go to front. Let's say we want to bring this up a little bit. We can do that. We can, first of all, I'm going to actually just make it simple, right? I'm going to go to this. Go to this and select this bottom. Select the line. I'm going to go a little bit closer. I'm going to select this line and this line and this line. Right click. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the edge loop, right? So now that I've got all these selected, I go back to the front view, and we can move this. So let's go ahead and go down up to the section that says select transform. And I'm going to move this upward up to about there. This way it kind of forms what we had planned originally. All right, cool. So now that we've got this first shape, it kind of looks really nice, I think. And we can go now to the front view here and create another one. So this is the easy way to create the forms. And I'm breaking this up so when we texture this, it just will be that much nicer. So let's go back now to the section here of 3D primitive. And it's going to keep the same thing that we already had. This is a much easier way to work things. So if we bring this down a little bit and let's bring this up to here, we can now form this next piece right there. And I want to, first of all, bring this down a little bit more. Sometimes you got to just finesse this thing a little bit. So I want this to be kind of right about here. So I can, use that to help me create that form. All right, so we're going to go ahead and bring this up to about there. So right about there. And I'm doing this for reasons because it just will be much simpler if I do this now. And I'm good with the position, I'm good with this position, and it's aligned with each of these edges. So before I do this, I'm going to go ahead and now use the height and bring in 2 more. So I want one here, I want one here, and I want one here. So I really want 3. So let's go ahead and add 3 on your height here. See, right there. Cool. And let's go ahead now and add and apply. Cool. So let's go now to the selection. We're going to select the line. We're going to select this line. And we're going to right click. And again, edge loop. Now we got this kind of selected. I'm going to bring this up all the way up to right where that line kind of forms. Perfect. Cool. Now we can right click and get off that, and now select this one. Same thing, right click, edge, loop. And again, we're going to bring this up. This is just a really perfect way to make sure that you only have the faces you need when you build this out. So right there. Again, we got this one. Right click, edge loop, and again, bring this down to right about there. Okay, so this is coming together. Now let's go ahead and work this. So I want to select, now normally I like to select this one, right? But it's hard to do that again, like I was communicating. We want to go to the face mode, go down, select this top piece. Now, if you're having problems with anything, you can go in here and kind of, we can make this now, we're going to right click on this and say top of missile, or tip of missile, I guess, tip on top, I guess, top missile. This way we can actually, can't spell, sorry. So we got top missile, and we're going to say, go ahead and make this into the top missile. And then we can select here, and this will be in a new one. We're going to add a new polygroup. This way we can control the sections that we're creating. This will be mid missile 1. Oops, 1. Enter. Now that we've gotten this created, we can actually move this into this one. Okay, so we got two forms. I could hide this one, right? This is a really good way to do this. So now that I've done that, I can go in here and just select the top. Again, select the line. And we can go back to the front view and let's see what we got. So let's go ahead and zoom in with your mouse button and use the middle to kind of bring it down. And I want both of these to be able to be selected. So I'm going to hit the shift key now with this one, right click, and again, edge loop. So I've got two forms now controlled. What I need to do now is just scale this down. And it's real simple to do. We can go over here again. We got this transform. We can just use this centerpiece here and kind of just bring it in. Just like that. If we want to get a little bit tighter, we can. Kind of closer to the other one, right? Just like that. We can also move this up a little bit so it kind of touches that one. And I'm good with that. And we can left click. Perfect. Now, I always suggest that we have a nice form on any edge. Same with this one, I'll do that as well. But for now, we can just do a simple like click here, right click, edge loop. I'm going to do a small bevel here. So really small. So 1 is fine. It just gives us that nice, or maybe 2. I'll go 2. Just to kind of give it a little bit thickness, right? So it has a nice curvature. So when it hits lighting, it'll just be that much cleaner when you do this stuff. I'd also suggest here as well. So if you click on this, right click, edge loop, same thing. Do the same exact bevel. This is just easy, to control. And again, it becomes like its own little section here. Now, we can have it connected if we wanted to, or we could have it like really smooth together. It doesn't really matter. I could get rid of the top piece if I wanted to. It just depends on what form you want. I kind of like it like this because it's its own form. And it's going to be kind of tight anyway. It doesn't really matter. But when I go into hide this now and unhide this, we already got the bevel on this one, right? So it doesn't really matter. And it's to the end. So it's already smooth there. I don't need to worry about this one. And these are both smooth. So we got that covered. Let's go back to the front view and go back to the mid section. Unhide this one. And let's bring this up with your mouse. Okay. So same process. We're going to go in, select, we're going to go all the way up to the top, select transform, again, surface or face, select this one, select the line, go back to the front view to see what we're doing, and we can scale this in. So now, if I wanted this to be its own entity, I could do that, and it might be better that way because this whole like block can be its own color if I want, or own material. It just depends on what you're doing. Or again, it just whatever you want to do in your material editing, right? So this is one form. This is a second form. And I'm going to go with, I think I want this whole like inner piece to be its own material. So what do I do now? I kind of already created this, right? But that's okay. So we can select the line here, shift, right click, and actually let go of that. Do the, again, edge loop. So we got both of these. I'm just going to bring this up. I'm going to bring it to here. And the reason I did this because I can now go in and just select this right here with the surface. Just kind of move it over. Select this, again, line. And we're going to go back to a scale. So I'm going to scale this in. We can select the center here and just going to bring this downward. And it doesn't have to be anything too much. I just go a little bit. And again, I'm just doing this so I can have a form here. And that's fine where it is. I'm going to now go here, select it, right click. We're going to now select the edge loop. I'm going to bring this down close to that edge, just like that. And the reason I did that is because now I can go in and just kind of, clean that up. Now, if something's in your way, like the sculpture thing's in your way, you can just hide this. We can see what we're doing here. Another way to do this, again, is select this line. And we can just do a small bevel here. Just to kind of give us a little bit there. We can do a small bevel. Actually, let's undo that. You're never going to see this one, but we want to see this one. So select the line. First, go and select line mode, and we'll select this one now. Right click, edge ring. And again, whoops, not edge ring. Select once, right click, edge loop. And we're just going to add a bevel. So bevel. And I'm going to bring this up to like 2 again. Because again, we want to be able to somewhat see this. And 3 is fine. Hit OK. So now we got a nice form and it goes inward. All right, so let's go to front. And again, zoom out. And now we're creating a lot of forms here, so it's really cool. So again, this should be hidden anyway, so it's not a problem. We can unhide all these things and see what we got. I'm going to hide this. Let's go to polygroup and hide this. Let's hide this for a minute. And polygroup, and we'll go back to the front view and let's see what we got. I think, yeah, that's looking really good. It has its own form, and this has its own form. And now that we've got that, we can go back here and see what we are planning to do here. And we want this whole section to be its own entity. So front view, and we're ready to create again. This one will be its own piece, and we're going to do basically 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. So kind of keep in mind how you're looking at something. For the beginning of this, we're going to go back up to the 3-point polys right here. And here we go. Zoom out, bring this down. We're going to go right to that edge right there. And we're also going to bring this down to this edge, kind of like real close to that. We can zoom in a little bit, see what we're doing. And we want this to be right on the edge of that. Cool. We have 1, 2, 3. We need 4 sections. I'm going to bring one up. Actually, we already got 1, 2. We need less of this. So let's go ahead and take this down to 2. So 2. So this will, perfect, just like that. Now we can hit apply. So it's now its own object. The only thing is with this, we want to make sure that we select it. I'm going to now before I do that, Control Z, I'm going to do what we just did. I need to create a new one because I don't want to have to try to reselect that and kind of connect it all. So this will be mid missile again, 2, and hit OK. So now we got a mid missile 2, and now we're going to go back to the 3D primitives. We already have it here. Again, make sure that this is only 2. For some reason it went back to where it was before, and everything's lined up perfectly. And go ahead and hit apply. So now it's going to create it in this section. Again, we're doing this to help us, easily texture this later. All right, so we've got this now. We can go back now and select the selection. Select this. Now, if you double click it, you think that would just be that, but let's try something else. Let's try the Alt key, and that's a great way to do this, right? So we could also do this one, Shift, Alt. And now we got all the rotation around this thing. Now we can use this to kind of help us pull this out. Well, that one didn't go, so that's okay. We'll just bring this down. Left click out of there, double click. But again, use the Alt key here, double click, and this is bring this upward, just like that. Cool. Now let's go ahead and hit the line again. First of all, let's do this one, Alt key. I gotta bring this up a little bit more. Shift, Alt, double click. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna scale this down just like this. Now, it's doing what it thinks it needs to do by spreading it like that. That's fine. You can now bring this back up to get the right form with the stretch mode here. So just like that. Cool. Easy to create, right? All right, so we've gotten these forms, and we can now go in, hide this one, hide this one, and let's make this simple. We're going to do the top view section first, and Shift, bottom section. Hit lines. And again, we're going to create a nice little bevel on that. Actually, we could do all these at the same time. So Shift, Alt. Actually, let's turn this around. I'm going to do the double click, and then Shift, and then Alt, double click. It's a little tricky. And we're going to add a bevel. And this bevel is, again, going to be 2. Okay. And they have 3 sections. And I think maybe make that 3. I'm going to go 3 on this one. I just want this to be a little bit more rotated, a little bit smoother. And I think that looks nice. Perfect. All right, so we've created this and hit OK. So now we can go back in, go back to Polygroup and see what we got. So again, we're creating this, keep going with what we got. And it has a nice form and breakup from each other. And the reason we're doing this is for surfacing purposes. All right, so this is showing us that we're going to have basically 3,000 something polygons, which is really low. And let's continue with our build here. So let's take this again and then hide it. So we got this section. We still got to do this section, this section, this section. Now in this section, I'm going to create it so it's up to about there. So again, let's go back. We're going to go back to polygroups. We're going to add a new one. And this will be mid missile 3. Hit OK. And you get the point. It becomes a little tedious after a while, but once you're done, it's going to be that much nicer. So go ahead and create this. We're going to bring this down. And this time, I'm actually going to use this right there. Kind of create the actual form at the bottom. Again, you just pick and choose what you want to do. And this is going right to the tip here. And in here, I'm going to create, I think on this one, I'm just going to have the base here and the base and that curvature here. So I need one here, and really that's it. So we can go with one. Again, the better we do the control of this, the better we're going to be. So go ahead and hit apply. It's on middle missile, apply. And we can now go in and select the transform line and Alt key, double click, bring this down right to there. Then we go back here and we can basically use your left mouse button, bring it in, select the face, select the line, and we're going to go back to the front here and we're going to scale this in. So scale. So we can select right here to scale this right in the center there, like that, just like that. All right, cool. So we got the line selected. I'm going to hit Shift, Alt, double click. Got them both selected. Let's go down to bevel. And again, we got this at 1. We're going to add 3. I think that looks good. Hit OK. So it has a nice form on the bottom, form here. All right. So getting closer. So I kind of want this to be a little bit longer, and that's going to be easy to do after I do this. And I kind of want this to be this a little bit shorter. So I'm thinking about this as I go. All right, so what I can do to make that happen is I can take this and hide everything here. Just select this one, hide this one. And I want to bring, I think I want to bring this up a little bit more. So how do I do that? I've already gone through all this, right? And it's real simple. We can go in here, first select this face here. And let's say you want to select the line. We can go here now, just hit Shift key, select each of these lines. Select them all, just like that. Right click, and we're going to select Edge Loop. Go back to the right or front. Actually use your Alt key and zoom out. And I just want to move this up, so go back here. I think it would look nicer if this was a little higher. Again, you can do a lot of adjustments this way. Let's just bring this up. So what's going on here is that it actually is not, I missed one. So what did I miss? So there's something that is not selected. This one right here. Shift key. And we can actually do right click, Edge Loop. Okay, that's what I was missing. See what happens if you don't pay attention. It's real easy to make a mistake. So now that we got those selected, I can move them all up. And I'm thinking right about there might look a little nicer, or maybe even a little bit more. I just think this piece right here, I want this longer. Okay, so now we've done that. We can go in here and go back to this next section. And this unhide, I want this now to be closer to that. And I think this is going to be a lot cleaner that way. So select this. And again, we just go to the front here, and I can just bring this up because I already got the face selected, and I haven't done anything with the form. And I think this is going to look way better. I think the middle should be a lot longer. It should be at least as long as this or close. Yeah, I think that looks better. So we got the bottom done, and now let's do the top. So here, we're going to go to Edge. And again, I'm going to do a bevel on this one. So go down to almost the bottom, bring it back up, bevel. And again, I'm doing 3 on this one, and hit OK. And this way, we're just reading a nice, separation between the two. All right, I think that looks really good. We're getting there. Go back to the front and unhide the sculpt. Yeah, okay, so continue. Now, I am going to separate out 2 more sections only. So let's continue as we build this out. So again, one more time, we're going to go over here to create 3D primitive. And we're going to right click and bring it down so we can get to this arrow. We're going to bring this. So this next piece will be its own entity. So I'm going to thinking about just in here and just in here. I want this to be like a separate piece. I just think that will look cleaner. Right there, right click, bring this down a little bit more, right about there. And again, I'm just getting real close to this. I do not need the middle. I also want to shrink this whole thing down, so select this box in the center. And actually, we just use the radius. Let's bring this in. So about right about there. So it's going to be like its own, like a collar kind of inside. Let's bring it a little bit bigger than that. I want it to be a little tight, maybe about, I think maybe a little bit bigger than that edge right there. And again, I do not need this one. So hit OK. And again, we're going to go back to Polygroup. We're going to go back to New and double click this, and this will be sleeve. Missile, okay, sleeve, missile. This way I have it all understood what these are, missile parts. In case we bring in parts and we want to do texturing later, we know exactly what is what. Okay, so sleeve missile, and we're going to go ahead and apply, just like that. All right, so again, hide this one, hide this as well. Makes it easier. Go back to selection mode. Go ahead and click on the face tool. Select the shift, face tool, lines. We're going to go back to simply to the bevel. Let's go back to the bevel here. And we're going to do 3. Hit OK. That looks good. And let's go ahead and go with that. Unhide these other ones. And there we go. Okay, we got one more part to do, and we still got the fins. Okay, let's go ahead and now do the very bottom piece. And yeah, perfect. So let's make sure we unhide this. So we want to kind of create something like this. It doesn't have to be exact, but close. And we're going to make sure that we create enough sections here. So we have 1 on top, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 sections. So keep that in mind while we're creating this piece. And again, I'm doing this because I just want this to be nice and smooth and round on the bottom. Not so sharp, I don't think. I actually might even want to make this a little bit bigger, maybe. So anyway. Let's go ahead and go to the top. Go back to the 3D section here. And 3D primitive. There we go. Let's bring this down all the way to the bottom here. And we're doing this to make it easier to kind of form this. So all the way up. Just like that. Now, one thing we could do is we can, this depends on how we want to look at this, but we could either scale it here to the bottom and then scale everything up, or vice versa. We can go from upper to lower. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to go with lower just so I can get the base kind of completed. Or do I want to go with the top because I don't have to deal with the top? So again, what's easier? I don't have to hide this if I do that. Just, it's always the thought process, right? If I do this, I kind of scale everything down into the space. And this may be less cuts and turns, but I'm just going to go with the top. So I'll go with the top section as an understanding. I can collect on this easier. So I need 7 sections. So let's go ahead and divide. So we already got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got one more. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We need one more. So let's go 5. Like that. So we got 7 sections. This is what we needed. All right, cool. So again, we're going to go here. We're going to make sure we add a new one. We're going to go to bottom missile. Spell. Perfect. Just like that, hit enter. And now it's on the bottom missile. We can go ahead and say apply. All right. So we're getting closer. All right. So what we need to do now is we can select the lines and kind of just place them all. So let's do this real quickly. I'm going to do the Alt key, but first go to the selection mode. Make sure you select the line, double click, move it up. And we're going to do this real quickly here. We're bringing that there. Left click. We're going to double click this one with the Alt key. We're going to zoom out a little bit, move this up a little bit. Right about there. So we're going to go in here and now start selecting the stuff. And it'd be real easy if I just select the Alt key here and just move this upward into the space right here. Just like that. And one thing I've got to make sure is that the whole thing's selected. Let's go back to the front. And now I could just go ahead and scale this in. So let's go and scale. Now, one thing you got to make sure that it's doing correctly is it's scaling down the center, right? If it's not, then you're going to have a problem later on. So let's go back to front. So again, Alt key, first select off, move this up. Again, just going to continue to build this. And we can even move the gizmo if we want to kind of get this closer to where we're at. So bring it down to here. Take this back off. And we can now scale this. Now, if we want it to be exact, you can do it at the same time. If that matters. I don't want to unscrew this up by accident, but you can actually scale this. Same time. I think right there is good. Again, sometimes you need to go around just to make sure it did what it's supposed to do. Back to the front view. All right, so again, I'm going to, on this one, just to make it a little easier, Alt key, I'm going to bring this over here into the center. And I'm also going to now select this face, select it first, select that line, now select this line. So Shift, Alt, double click. Now we got them all selected, right? Go back to the front. And now we can actually scale this in right here. We're going to scale this just like that. I'm going to bring this one up and make sure everything's selected. Go back to the front view. Now we can go back here, select the face, and select the line. Again, back to the front view and bring this down. Just like that. Okay. So we've got our form. And let's go ahead and clean it up a little bit now. We got to still bevel all this stuff. And we also need to open this up. So let's go ahead and select this. We're going to now use another tool, which is called the actual. So if you hit the inset here, we can now scale this in kind of wherever we want. I'm going to bring it to the right there. And then we're going to use the simple Smart Extrude. So I'm going to go back to the right view or front view. I'm just going to bring this upward right about there. And now that's created this nice form. All right, cool. Simple as that. Now we can go ahead and left click and let's go ahead and continue. Front view. Move it in. All right, so one thing is I need to get this now and shrink this down. So let's go ahead and select, transform select, and we're going to again select the face here, select the line, and let's bring this in to about right there. Cool. Control Z. I want to make sure that I have this selected still. Okay. Let's go ahead and hide these other ones. And we can hide the sculpt tree one so I can see what I'm doing. So for some reason that got deselected. So select it, edge. All right, so now we got this Shift, Alt, and we can go through this whole thing and kind of just get this all selected, double click, just a real easy way to do this. Double click, and then we can go in here. We can turn this, and again, Shift, double click. And there we go. Now we got everything kind of highlighted. We can move this around. All right, perfect. Now I'll go back to bevel, and we're almost there. Bevel. And I'm going to do 3. Hit OK. And I'm good with 3. Hit OK. OK. So now that we've done all that, let's see what it looks like with all the pieces. Yeah, that looks really good. All right, so we got our form, our main form, and next section will be to create the fins. All right, so I thought I'd go back and kind of just re-record this section here in the middle. Thought, having another version of this would be a little bit easier to follow. So I've created 32 sides again. I went to the 3D primitives and brought it in. I am going to bring in a few more sections here so I can help divide this out a little bit. So I want the height to be a little different. So I'm going to bring in like at least 2 sections, and good for that for now. And we're going to now go ahead and apply. So we can always go back and take a part out and redo it if we ever wanted to. Just delete this center section and go back and redo it again if you have to. So let's go ahead and say apply. So again, we went with 32 sections, right? And I put it in a different poly group to make it easier. So we can also hide all these now, just to get them out of my way. And we'll come back to that later. Okay, so we have this form now. One of the things I'd like to do is I want the wing to be a little bit higher up. So I'm going to most likely just take the line and bring it up. So first of all, go to selection mode. And we're going to double click this and bring this up. So we're going to go about to here, something like that. Now, don't forget, we went with 32, so it could be easily divided out. And it's just a much easier way to do this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get rid of some stuff, and just to make it a little easier for us when we get ready to start conforming this thing. So I'm going to select again, hit the face, hit the top, rotate this around, Shift key, and now that we've got the 2 selected, well, that one just unselected here. Make sure I got both. We can delete those sections, right? And I'm going to divide this out into 4 sections. Like it's basically, I got 32, so it's perfectly, divided by 4. So that's kind of what the objective is here. So I'm going to go back to the front view here. And I've done those 2. I'm going to go ahead and go in here and select the side like that. And now we got 4 left, right? And then again, do the same thing here. Make sure I don't go too far. And we got 1, 2, 3, 4, right? All right, so we got those selected. I'm going to head now and delete that. And make sure that we got it right. Always make sure, double check. So right now, actually I have less on this side. So we definitely got to undo that. And I'm going to deselect this section here. And this one here. And now delete. Okay, cool. So now we got all 4. Sometimes it's a little tricky on the way it looks. It looked like I had it, but nope. So now we can select the object mode and delete this back one. So then we can go back to the front, and we have this kind of worked out. So what I'm going to do now is basically take this here, and I'm going to extrude it. This will give us an extra area in the center here by doing that. So let's go to Smart Extrude here, click on it, and we're going to bring this out just like that. And what this has done is given us an extra set of geometry in here. So that will help us when we do this thing. Right? Without doing that, it will become problematic. So that's the first step. Second one is we can now go in and kind of just scale this in, and we can do that by selecting the transform and going to the front here and just bringing this in. What I'm going to also do next is I'm going to add a little bit more detail on the backside just to make it a little easier and more controllable. So first of all, split ring. And again, if we didn't do that extrude, we won't be able to do this right now. So let's go ahead and do this. And now that I've done that, I can escape. Okay. And I also now want to kind of work some things here. I need to add a little bit more detail on the top and the bottom. This way it just has a better flow. So let's do that first. So I'm thinking ahead here. I want a nice set of actual edges right here. And you don't want to go too close because it'll be crammed. I'm going to go about right about there. And the same thing here, about there, a little bit lower. All right, so now that I've done that, I have more functionality with this now. And we can go in and kind of just squish this down. So what I could do here is just go to the right view. A couple more things we can do while we have this set up is first of all, let's go and do that selection mode. We got a lot of things we can do here, of course, but I'm going to go ahead and select this. And this gives us now the ability to kind of squeeze this in to the space. So I'm going to go back to the top, and that helps us keep this edge here, kind of. So let's go ahead and go over here. Now I can move this over with the move gizmo and bring this over here. And then we can take this back off, and now we can squeeze that in like that. We want this nice and thin. Otherwise, it's just going to look kind of weird. So that's that. Now what we can do here, because of this, I want to make sure I bring these points up. So first of all, let's go and select this one. And we're just going to bring it straight up. This gives us a nice rotation here. And left click on that side there, and now we can select this one and do the same thing, bring it up. This will help us give us a nice trailing edge there. And the other thing we need to do here is do the opposite and bring these down. So let's kind of zoom in a little bit, see what we're doing. I want to make sure I didn't have that. Control Z. I'm going to make sure I get this one and shift key this one. And we're going to bring this down. This gives us a nice edge. Okay. And it's just kind of a good way to kind of start off. Now I'm going to also go here and rotate this one. So this is why we did that extra detail. So we can bring this one down like that. And we can bring this one down like that. And again, zoom in and get this one, and bring those upward, just like that. All right, cool. So we're getting closer to the form that we want. Now, I do want to actually change some of the dynamics here by making it look nicer, by moving some things. So we have this form. I kind of want to make it more of a, I guess, a little bit more like rounded here. So I'm going to bring this back out a little bit. I'm also going to bring this down and in, kind of like that. Now I got a nice form forming. All right, so the next step is I want to add more detail to this as well. So I have a lot better, when I do a smooth on this, it'll have more control. And to do that, I need some control. So I need to bring in a little bit more detail on this section here. So let's do that. So we're going to go down to the point where we go back to split rings. And again, I'm going to go about right about there. And I'm going to do this as well. I'm going to go right down to the center here. I'm going to add 2 more sections or 3 sections, just like that. Okay. I'm actually going to go here as well. Go back down one. I wanted to add one more there. So anyway, I'll go right here instead. So you can always go back, like I said. So what we can do here now is that we've got some of this extra detail. It will help us really drive this nice form when we do the smooth. I'm actually going to go now to the selection mode and kind of just, you can just select these right here and kind of move this whole thing outward if we want. Now, one thing we've got to make sure is it collects both sides, right? If this is not on and ignore back faces, you're going to get half of it, and that'll look kind of funny. So let's go back. I'm going to do something like this and something like this, just to give it a little bit more roundness. Again, we could always go with more of a square look if we wanted. It's really up to you what you want, of course. So I can even go here and kind of go with the points, move it up. And we could rotate it. And here too. Now, one good thing about this is that we kind of do want a rotation here because we want this to kind of follow a nice, edge. So if I do something like that, that will look a little bit better. And it just has a nicer form. And same thing here. If I go here and I rotate, I kind of want to bring this downward a little bit and out. And we can also move this in. I want to make this a little sharper. I think I'll do this as well. This will give it just a nice curvature here. So I'm going to also do this here. And bring this more of an edge. Because again, we can make this more rounded and more smooth. And I think that looks good. I also think I would like to bring these up a little bit. And just whatever makes it look good for you, go for it. And I think these ones will move it back a little bit just to kind of give it a nice follow through. Okay. So we've gotten that form. Now this is going to be just a test to see how this will look. I'm not going to keep the actual thing here. I'm going to undo it once I do it, but I want to see what this is going to look like. So I'm going to go all the way down to the point where it shows the CC. And that's right over here, smooth CC. So if I select this, this is going to be what it's going to look like overall. Again, if I like the form, then I'm good. If I want more of a harsh edge, then that's fine too. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to make it more rounded and smooth, okay? And for the follow-up on this will be another class completely from A to Z, and it'll be a lot more detail included. All right, so let's go ahead now and undo. So I'm going to undo that a couple times. Okay, cool. So we did this section here because it's just, in the Voxel mode, it's really easy to do sections, and you can actually do symmetry like crazy and not worry about the other end because all the sides will work exactly as you think they would. But in polygon mode, it doesn't work that way. It has a hard time, adding in that detail. So it's good to get rid of the other stuff so you can work around it. All right, so let's go ahead now, and before I do anything else, I'm going to go more like this. You know what? I'm going to go more like this. Just a little bit more in. And a little bit more in here. I just want to make it a little bit sharper, I guess. And we can also do this. We could take this piece here and kind of just make it more rounded there. And that will help drive a form as well. Again, you can think about all these things ahead of time, and it will come out that much nicer. So let's go and do something like this. And then we can do something like this. And it's doing both sides, so we're good. Like that. And this one up a little bit more. This gives it just a nice trailing edge, right? So if I go here and kind of see how that edge is looking a lot more rounded. All right, so that's good. So now the trick of this is to basically use the symmetry. So make sure it's on. If you don't have it, just select it here and you can put down symmetry, right? Now I'm going to go with radial symmetry and 4 sides. Now if I enable this, it becomes all the way around, all 4 sections, and everything's connected. So yeah, that looks really cool. Now the only thing I would say is I'm going to undo this for a second, because when I see this, I think because once I add everything together, it gives you more of a basic view of what you're doing. I really like to maybe bring this in a little bit more. I think it's out too much personally. So I'm going to bring this way, and I'm also going to bring it this way. More of a rounded edge, and I think I might bring this down too, just to give it some follow through. And I could do something like this. There we go. And again, you could do the wings any way you want, of course, but this is just an example of how to work this stuff. Okay, so let's go ahead now and hit symmetry again. And if you like the form, I wish that they had a way to look at this in like a more smooth form, not just lines, because that would really give you a lot better understanding of how things are coming out, right? And I like the design. I like everything about it. I think it's fine the way it is for this tutorial. Might just go ahead and go back to the right view. And while you got this open, you can do some more changes. Let me just make this more harsh. And this will actually make all of them that way, because we're actually using the form right now. Just like that. Cool. So now that they've all been done, we can go in and let's start working the top sections. We need to, first of all, get this thing to become one piece again. And to do that, we got to go over here to mesh and select the apply symmetry to all layers or current layer. I'm just going to go with this one. It's fine, because I'm in this layer. And once I've done that and I hide this, if it goes away, then it didn't do what it was supposed to do. So what I can do here is just select it, or let's just go back here and try this again. Mesh. I'm going to apply it to all layers this time. See how it turned green? There we go. It's a little tricky. And then when I turn this off, it stays, right? So that's perfect. And we got a good form. Everything's together. Now let's go ahead and do the top piece real quick and the bottom. So I'm just going to left click, auto, just get out of there, cap it again. There we go. See, if I go away from that, it becomes that top piece and then the bottom. It's kind of a little tricky sometimes. Left click, there we go. So that actually worked really well. And the only issue that I have now is I got all this lines, right? I don't like messing with that when I start doing, different things here. So what I normally do is I just go in and get rid of it. You can keep it if you want to have all 4-point polys and stuff, and that's fine. And if that's what you want, 4-point polys, then you could also just, go in here and kind of just bring an inset into this. So we can do that real quick. Just to reduce time, right? That's about the whole thing about this stuff when you're making things. You want to do it as fast as you can so you can continue to make other stuff. And do it right, of course, the first time. Once you get to the point where everything goes right, it's just that much easier. So we can go now to the face selection. So select faces. And I'm just going to go with this. And I'm going to go all the way around just like that. Okay, cool. Now that I've done that, we can go in and do an inset. So let's go to the inset section, which is here. And we can go in and pull this in, just like that. And now we've done that. We undo. I don't want to deselect that. I want to actually now go here to the mesh. And I want to change the topology to quads. So actually it's in, go back to mesh. Here it is, apply quadrillation. And now we got all quads. Okay. And we can also now go back, selection mode, Again, I'm just trying the best I can to not have to redo things. So I'm going to double click here, and I'm going to go to bevel to give it a nice edge. So let's go here, and we could bring this up, something like that. And let's add in at least 4 edges. Sometimes it does more than you expect, so you just got to type it in, hit OK. The problem about doing all this extra detail, for instance, is that when I do the smooth on this, it will become a lot more detail. So I'm going to suggest that we cancel this whole thing, and I also suggest that we get rid of all these here for now, and we'll let the computer do the work for us. So let's go back to selection. Select the lines again. I want to use the brush, and I'm going to go in here and select every other one. I'm also going to deselect this one here. So I have one trailing edge here. Delete those. Oops. Control Z. Got to make sure these are deselected too. Actually, let me just auto click, and then I'm going to do this again. Do something like this, and like that. Delete, and that way I have just the one. We could delete this one now. And the reason I'm doing this is because it'll just be that much easier when I do the smooth on this thing. So now I've done this, I'm just going to double click it, and we're going to do one bevel just to give it an edge. Because again, when I do the smooth on this, it'll add all that detail. And I don't want too much detail. I don't want it to be way too heavy. So let's go ahead and go with the actual, looking for selection. Here we go. And bevel. And again, we're going to go with like something like 4 or 7. That's good, I guess. And we can do 1 only. I don't want to have, I just want to have one trailing edge here, because when I do the smooth, it'll add it for me. So let's hit OK. All right, so we did the top. Now let's do the bottom. So again, same thing here in the bottom. We can double click it. But first of all, let's go ahead and select these. So let's go back to selection mode. Pretty much the same process all the way through. Just got to go in and do this. And once you do, it's really simple to work it. So again, I'm just going to delete this for now. I'm going to select this here to make it easier and select the line. There we go. And we're going to do a bevel on this. So again, go down to selected, bevel. And we're going to do this at maybe 8. Something like that. There we go. Now, you see how this is not right? Something happened. So Control Z. Let's see what happened. When selecting something, I must have deleted it by accident. So you got to be very careful, because once you do that, it's hard to go back. So again, I've done that. I'm not going to select this again. I'm going to make sure I don't select that by accident again. So again, select it. You always got to double check your work before you do anything major, because then it's got to go way back. And sometimes you don't have enough undos. So let's go ahead now and just select these. And I would also suggest that now you're doing this, ignore back faces, because you might select something you don't want to select by accident, and then it's a problem. Ignore back faces. Okay, so I got that on. We can do this. See, when I did this, I must have selected something inside and not realized it. See, double check it. Delete. Select this one, delete. Okay, now we've done that. Let's do this again. Line. And we can go all the way down to selected, bevel. And we'll make this like, I think 8. And this has a nice trailing edge with one section. Now, I would suggest that you look at, the other parts and make sure that this fits before we do too much more. And I would say, go ahead and okay, we can always go back if I have to. Now, I didn't do what it's supposed to do, so I would also select this unhiding the area between, right? So you can see what you're doing. So let's do this again. I want this to kind of, get right to that edge, if that makes sense. Let's do 10 first. Hit enter. And we only want one. Okay. Now I need to go a little bit more. So let's go with like 15, I think. About half that size. And maybe a little bit more. Let's do 20. There we go. Now it actually went all the way in. And that looks good. All right, so let's hit OK. Cool. All right, so we've gotten that form. We've gotten that form. Everything's together. Yeah, that's simple. So now let's go ahead and use the smooth and see how this is going to look. So again, we're going to select only this. And we're going to go over here to Smooth CC. And once you do that, it adds a lot more detail, but it does look a lot cleaner and a lot more information there to make it smooth. All right, so that's it for that part. Let's continue. All right, so we're now going to go into the bottom section here and kind of just make everything else hidden. And we're going to start working this the same way we just did the midsection. We're going to create a fin on the bottom. And again, this is just for the basics. So let's continue. All right. So again, make sure enable symmetry is off. And we're going to select the same thing. We're going to have 8 sections. However, there's the problem with this is that these might not completely line up because the bottom is tapered. And we got to keep that in mind when we create this kind of stuff. So we might have to go back and kind of reform some of the stuff. So let's go ahead and get to the top here. And basically delete that. And then we can go back in here and kind of just take away some of this stuff. So again, inside here, delete it. Go to the side here. Basically to the front view. And we're going to go now and start selecting some things here. All right, so we're going to go in now and select some of these sections and get rid of it. Just to make it a little easier, so go ahead and select the faces and let's move this into the space. But first of all, we're going to kind of clean this up. We got way too much detail from before. Again, this is just a change in direction here, so sometimes you got to go back and clean things up to make it easier. And again, a lot of times it's just, trying to figure out what you want to do. So in here, I'm going to go in and kind of just select some of this stuff and get rid of it. So I'm going to go over here to the top. And just start bringing the line out and around. Try to make sure I, keep the 4 sections that are there. Way I can kind of establish where that's at. And if I need to go back with the line tool to select more, I will. So go back in. Go ahead and do that. Let's go back again. And this time I'm going to go all the way through. Back out. There we go. So we can get that whole section done right. There we go. Now we could just delete that section. Great. And do the same thing over here. All the way through. Just make sure you got the 4 sections. Select it. Again, counting them, make sure, and delete. All right, cool. So now when I create the full rotation of this, it'll completely come back together again. Now I need to get rid of this back section as well, and some of these extra lines that are just in the way. So we're going to select these here with the face tool. So select them. And we're going to actually select the actual brush tool and select these sections here and delete it. All right, cool. So let's zoom in a little bit on the bottom here. And I kind of want to get rid of a lot of this stuff. It's just too much stuff. So again, I'm going to select the line tool or face tool and just delete these. First of all, I'm going to actually use the brush selection and just get rid of this whole section here. So I'm going to recreate the whole thing anyway. So go ahead and get all those and delete. I could have done actually more of this at one time, but anyway, let's go back, select the line, and then select those faces and delete. I could have gone right from the one side and kind of gone all the way through, but anyway, there's better ways to do things. So go ahead and select these. So go ahead and go to the side here, just kind of select them all. Best thing would have been to kind of go around the whole base here, just select them. It would have saved a lot of time. Anyway, this is the method I used at that time. It would have been much faster if I did that. For reference, go ahead and deselect those and delete these. Like I said, you could have just did a rotation around that whole piece right there and got rid of it. Okay, so we're going to get rid of some of these lines as well. We're going to go back to the right view and back to the front here. Let's just go ahead and select all these, Alt key. Okay, we're going to add some sections in here just to make it a little easier. So I'm going to split the rings here under tweak and go up a little bit. I kind of want to divide out these areas so I have a little bit of control of where I put the actual fin. And now that I've done that, I can go back in and kind of just clean this up and get rid of some stuff I don't need. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and now select the lines and get rid of all these lines here. I'm going to go fast forward through this so you just understand, just kind of follow along, but delete all these ones up to the edges and good to go. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's go ahead and now select the center sections in here and just kind of follow along with the faces here. So go all the way down in the center here, right about there. And I got these now selected. All right, great. Go to the side view so we can see what we're doing. I'm going to make sure I go in here into the Smart Extrude and go to the actual right view. So go to the right and just pull this out. There we go. And we're going to use this to help us form the actual fin. Okay, left click to accept. Now we can select these center sections here and kind of shrink them in. So again, go to selection mode on the right side. But first I'm going to add one split ring into the back section there. So this way it kind of helps hold that edge for us. Okay. Go to selection mode. And again, we're going to select faces. Now, it's been much easier just to do an actual selection method with lasso. But anyway, I selected these and I'm going to scale these in. Make sure you don't hit the arrow. So I'll do that. I'm going to pull that in now and just shrink that inward so we have a nice taper. Right about there. Okay. All right, so let's go to the side. And we need to do a little bit more here. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure it's on the right. And again, I'm going to select inward and get some more selection. And make sure both sides are selected. And go ahead and pull that in. You see it's going to be a lot nicer now. A little bit skinnier. And I can scale this in a little bit. That help bring in the upper and lower section away from the edge. Okay. Alrighty, so continue. Now we can go back and select some of these points and move them upward so they have a nice section here. Let's bring these first upward so it has a nice edge to it, and this one as well in the center here. That way we have a way for it to pull into, basically, is what we're doing here. You need to do this to kind of get good control of your polys. So select those two here and bring it downward. So we're creating like an edge piece here to make it more rounded once we add in some more detail. Same with the bottom. I'm going to do the same thing here. Go and select these now. The one on the bottom here, bring it down. First, we're just going to select the one on the bottom here and bring that down first. So select it. Do the first one only by itself. So if you select two, you get a weird angle. So always select this to one. Just bring that down. Take your time with it. So select that one now and bring this down. So again, a nice trailing edge. And then we can select these two as well. And bring those upward. Make sure you get them both selected. Pull it up. Again, this has a nice edge to it now. And we'll go to the right view. Okay, cool. So we're going to kind of just take these now and kind of just form it. So we're going to bring this over and in and down. And I'm going to rotate it to has a nice angle to it. So same thing here. I'm going to bring this inward and up. Just trying to line everything up the way I'd like to see it. Same thing here, inward, up a little bit, and rotate. I think I have it a little bit too rotated there. It's a little bit less. There we go. I want that angle there. That's important. And bring that in a little bit. There we go. And then we can bring this in a little bit as well to kind of make it more straight there. And again, on the advanced version that I'll be having later on, it'll have a lot more detail to have a nice clean fin. This is just to kind of show you how to use these tools. So rotate and then down a little bit. So something like that looks good. And then this as well, bring this up a little bit more. And just try to, make this look nice by just kind of getting the form to look more rounded. Because again, we're going to add more actual, we're going to add a lot more smoothness to this to make it nicer. But for now, that's kind of what we're doing here. So going back in now, is just selecting everything. Make sure I'm on the top view now. And I'm going to scale this in a little bit more. I just kind of want to make that thinner. So pull that in a little bit more. Just, normally these fins are very thin. They're just enough to help support the actual unit. I'm going to move this out a little bit more just to kind of pull away from that. Yeah, I think that looks nice. Okay, cool. Okay, so now I'm going to go in and kind of straighten some of these points up as well. So I'm going to go to the side view and kind of just, straighten these things up a little bit more. So let's go ahead and kind of move this a little bit to the side. I'm going to select this point there. Actually, I want to select points, not faces. So select points. Let's go ahead and select that one and this one. If you can't get to it, zoom in a little bit and use the box selection. So go over to the side here, make sure you hit shift so that way both are selected. And now we've got both of those selected, just make sure. And we can kind of move this now into place. So go to the right view and we're going to bring this down and out. So bring it out. Okay. So bring inward and then down. Kind of line it up with the bottom there. And it's a little bit closer to that edge. And we're going to do the same thing on the top here. So select those. Get a little closer. I want to deselect that top one. So Control. And now we got these two here. We can bring this up and a little bit inward just to get it a little bit closer to that edge. Cool. All right, so I'm going to test it out by hitting the smooth and see how that would look. Once I smooth it out, it does look a lot more rounded and smooth, of course. I did get some weird situations here on the edges, which I need to fix, so I'm going to undo that. And then I'm going to go back in and kind of just fix some things here. So I want to kind of straighten some things out as well. So this point right here, actually want to go in and just select this section. I'm going to move this upward so it's a little bit more to the actual front here. And just want to make sure it's lined up and got both sides. And then kind of straighten this up with the other line. This way it has a little bit less pull on it. I'll do the same thing here. Bring this up. Just like that. And this one here, bring it down. Just trying to get a much smoother transition. And it will come out a lot nicer this way. So again, we can hit this smooth. First of all, we're going to hit selection mode and points. And I want to get this kind of moved up a little bit more. In. It's a good thing to test occasionally to see what things are kind of breaking or not breaking before you commit too much. So bring this up a little bit as well. Just trying to get this kind of to line up a little bit better. And these over here as well. Inward. So again, I'm going to try to see what this looks like with the split ring. Add one more there. And go back to selection mode. And we're going to move this out a little bit just to give it a little bit more roundness there. So same thing, we're going to split this again. Split ring. You see that it's not completely splitting on the edge there because there's a problem on that end. So I'm going to split a couple more of these. Then I have to go back and fix those. So there's an issue there. So go to selection mode. And it's going to move this stuff out to kind of just make it a little bit more rounded. Same with this one. You can rotate it and bring it down. So the best thing I could have done here was actually go to point mode and kind of just select that whole thing except for the very top and bottom edge of that rectangle there. And that would have deleted, I could have deleted all those points within. And then I could have just did a knife here. That would have been a lot quicker process. I deleted that edge. Okay, so I deleted that side, and I'm going to also delete the other side as well. So select the face tool and select it and delete it. Like I said before, it'd been much easier to kind of clean it up instead. But anyway, so now we're going to go in and select these sections here, and we're going to create a quad. So we're going to select the quads here and select the edge here. And kind of work our way down to the bottom here and then back out. So you basically created one rectangle, and now we got to go back and knife in. So we'll go to the edge here, what's red, and then over here. This way it's completely there, and then hit enter. And like I said, this would have been much easier if I would have deleted everything on the points instead. So go ahead and select this one now, same process. We're going to go to the bottom and then over to the side here. And there we go. And knife that as well. Cool. All right, so that's done. We're going to continue. Okay, we're going to go back to the smooth section here on the bottom, on the intermesh section, and see how that looks. And that fixed everything on the bottom. We still got an issue on this center section. Again, it would be good to go through there and just delete any points in there to save time. So I'm not going to go over that process. I'm just going to go fast forward this part because you guys can handle that. Just again, get rid of all the points. So again, this area here, I had to get rid of these points here because those are a problem. And the same with the other side. As long as you get rid of those points properly, you don't have to do much. So again, we could just delete them. And again, we smoothed it to see what it looked like. Now, if I would have done all that in the first place, I would have perfect transition between each of these sections when I did the radial symmetry. So keep that in mind when you're doing this stuff. It's always better not to delete anything and add lines like a knife to it. Just try to stay away from that because it will cause a separation of these areas and you have to go back in and clean it up. So again, go back and make sure that you just don't do a knife and just kind of get rid of those points in the center, and that will solve any of these problems that you see that I have here. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so let's select the top line here now and just kind of make sure it's line selection. Select it with the Alt key and make sure all of it's selected. And we're going to actually cap this again. So make sure it's selected. Go to the cap section on the left, select it, and make sure it looks like it's perfect. So that's great. Left click. There we go. All right, so we're going to go in and kind of just get the lines here on the bottom and kind of straighten everything up. So select it, Alt key, and make sure everything's selected. And we're going to go to the point selection mode. We're actually going to go first and extrude this. Actually, we're able to cap that perfectly. The brush selection. I'm going to go around and select the polys here. Go back to brush. And again, we're going to go around, select all these lines. Go with mesh. I'm going to quad, basically. So that looks better. So again, let's go down and see how this looks now that we did all the work and smooth it. As long as everything's touching, we're good. If not, you have to kind of connect things together. See, that looks nice. It's a nice form. Okay, so I went ahead and taking a look at this. I kind of need to do some things here. I want to straighten this up. So I'm selecting a line here and selecting, making sure I select points. And then I'm actually going to go in and just bring this thing upward so that way everything can line up properly. And we got to make sure we're in the center of this space as well. So again, select the line, Alt key, and then we're going to use the points here. And just pull this down with the actual scale section. This way all the lines completely get straight right to the center of that line. This is kind of where you want to go. Right there. And we can do the same thing on the other one as well. So select it. Make sure you select the line. Double click. Alt key. Now if it's not working, we can go in and kind of get rid of this line. So because of the way we use the smooth tool on this, it created a lot of deformations on this line. So it'd be good to kind of just, since we're now going to go back and cut into this, it'd be better to kind of just delete this whole bottom piece and start from scratch on that. Because again, it's just much cleaner this way if we do that. So let's go to the side view, right view, and we're going to go ahead and select these sections below it. And we can first get this line here, make sure we have it. And now that we've gotten this, we can go in and just select all these actual, deselect these. So go ahead and do the actual smooth or control key. And let's do this again. Go to Edge, select the middle section there. Go to the front view. I'm going to select, we're going to go all the way from the bottom up. I'm going to select that right there. And then we're going to go okay, so select the line, double click it with the Alt key, select points, and again we're going to scale this upward so it's nice and smooth and straight all the way to the center of that line. There we go. Okay, and then we select the line, and we can move this down a little bit. Just get that away from everything else. So about right there. Okay, good. All right, so let's go ahead and select this bottom here with the selection tool, rectangle. Now that we can easily select that, we can now delete this. So again, make sure it's selected. And now we can actually delete this section here. So go ahead and delete it. First of all, let's select the actual faces here and go upward. So we get the right amount. Okay, there we go. That's a better way to select that. We could also went back to face mode. So we can now delete this. Make sure everything's selected. And again, just make sure we got everything. I'm going to deselect these ones here. Endpoints. We can kind of bring this closer. Okay, so now we can just select the actual edge here. So select the edge or the faces, whichever, and select that bottom section there. We've got it tightening, and we got that selected now. Let's just delete this. There's no reason for that. There's also no reason for this upper one, so delete that. We could have just selected all the way up and deleted that whole section and been quicker. So okay, let's go back now and select the line here. And we're going to cap this as well. So this way we have a good, start point. So let's cap it. And we're going to get rid of all these lines now. Left click first. So that way we are actually proceeding with that. And now we can go in and select these lines. So again, go to selection mode. And we're going to go to faces. And we're going to start going around this, but we want to make sure that we don't select them all. Hit the inset here. See, it's not really working very well because we had one less that we did not select. So make sure everything's selected. So now that we've got them all selected, let's do this again. Select them all. Inset. We got some other ones selected by accident there, so we definitely don't want to do that. So deselect these ones. Now that was a mistake that I made here. I would definitely undo all the way back so we don't have to deal with this section here later. So you kind of created another form around there. Keep in mind that that's a problem. So we definitely wanted to go back a couple times because it created more work for us. So just undo until you get to the point where that's gone and then go back without making that mistake. Okay, so I went in here and kind of inset this in. So we have a center section here, and now we can go in and do the actual extrude. So smart extrude and bring it down. All right, so that's the intersection. Now we can actually add in a nice bevel in both of these sections. Let's go ahead and bring this out first with the smart extrude before we actually extrude in. And let's bring this in about there. And again, smart extrude again and bring it down. Okay, that's much better. We can go farther deeper into that space so you don't see it. Cool. Now we can select these edges. So go to selection and select these sections here, Alt key. Well, first we'll do the inside here. Now it's hard to select that, so edge loop and then bevel. I'm going to increase this quite a bit. I'm going to type that in to like 5, hit OK. Yeah, we'll go a little bit farther, maybe 10. And then we could bring this up to like, I'm not going to really see this, but if you ever wanted to see that, at least you have it clean. Let's make that like 5 or 4, hit enter. Hit OK. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and do these sections now. So Alt key, Shift Alt, same thing. Going to go down to the bevel. It's at 1. Depending on how smooth you want this or round you want this, you got to change that number. So we're going to go up to about 5. And the system's working slow. All right, that looks nice. Hit OK. All right, great. So this is the beginning of creating the actual forms. And the next part, I'll be going in and doing the texturing on this more simple missile model. If you want to continue to watch this as I go forward and with the new version of this later on, subscribe so you'll get the information coming to you. All right, thanks again for joining me.